Good morning.
Good morning.
Glad you all could be out here this morning. I'm so glad that Charles and his stepdaughter has such a good relationship. My dad passed when I was 13, and I had a real bad situation with my stepdad. And I can only explain it is that I hated him and he hated me. And that was basically how it went down. And but one thing it taught me was my son married and his wife had 3 children. So I set my son down and I gave him a piece of advice. I said, those kids are your kids. You took on the responsibility of raising those children. Those children call me and Mary Grandma and Grandpa.
Amen.
Because they're part of our family.
Amen.
And through that bad experience that I had, I learned something. I learned a very important lesson, is that family is very, very important.
Yes, sure is.
Not just the father, not just the mother, not just the children. It's the family. It's the unit. And that's, sorry to say, but that's what's wrong with our country today, is we have destroyed that family unit by, my opinion is we don't have jobs that could support a family. We lost a lot of jobs that could support a family with only one working. So the wife had to go out to go to work. But I'll get off my soapbox now and preach my sermon. But amen. I'm glad that everybody's here today. I'm glad that you're all in a fatherly mood. The idea for creating the day for children to honor their fathers began in Spokane, Washington. A woman by the name of Sonora Smart Dodd thought of the idea for Father's Day while listening to a Mother's Day sermon in 1909. Having been raised by her father after her mother died, Sonora wanted her father to know how special he was to her. Her father made all the parental sacrifices and was in her eyes as a daughter a courageous, selfless, and a loving man. Her father was born in June, so she chose to hold the first Father's Day celebration in Spokane, Washington on the 19th of June, 1910. In 1924, President Calvin Coolidge proclaimed the third Sunday in June as Father's Day. Roses are a Father's Day flower. As I was doing this research, I didn't really realize that. But you wear a red rose if your father is still living, and you wear a white rose if your father is passed. A good father is one of the most unsung, unpraised, unnoticed, and unappreciated heroes in all humanity. One time a little boy was asked to define Father's Day, and he said, "It's just like Mother's Day, only you don't spend as much on the present." The greatest number of long-distance phone calls are made on Mother's Day, and the largest number of collect calls are made on Father's Day. Now, of course, that was before cell phones, but that's where we stand then. But we still have a great task in front of us. There is a great need in our day for fathers to live up to their God-given task. How many of you remember the Andy Griffith Show? Some of you younger people may not remember that show, but it was a very wholesome family show. And I found this writing that was part of the show, but I think it fits in here. A hobo told Andy he should just let Opie, his son, which he was raising by himself, except for his Aunt Bee, decided for himself to let him decide for himself how he wanted to live. And Andy had these words of wisdom: "No, I'm afraid it don't work that way. You can't let a young'un decide for himself. He'll grab at the first flashy things with shiny ribbons on it. Then when he finds out there's a hook in it, it's too late. Wrong ideas come packaged with so much glitter that it's hard to convince them that other things might be better in the long run. All a parent can do is say, wait and trust me, and try to keep the temptation away. Somehow, we have lost this basic truth. Too many people are more worried about being their child's friend than being a parent. I found some statistics that it was taken in 2019, so they probably changed by now, but it said that 68 million of our nation's 94 million men don't attend any church.
Wow.
And this is in spite of the fact that 80% of them grew up with some sort of church background. Research has revealed that if a child is the first person in the household to become a Christian, there's a 3.5% chance or probability that everyone else in the household will become a Christian. Not very high at all, 3.5. If the mother is the first to become a Christian, the percent goes up to 17% of the home will see the remainder of the members become a Christian. But this is very interesting. If the father is the first, there is a 93% probability that everyone else in the household will become a Christian. When the father goes first spiritually, good things happen in the home. Let's all in our prayers pray to God that we would spread the gospel and promote the gospel of Christ enough that more men would even become Christians, so more Christian families can be formed. Never has there been a generation in our nation where this has been more important than now. One of the reasons that the church is weak in many places is because fathers are not fulfilling their spiritual duties. One of the reasons that so many of the youth of our day are involved in drugs and premarital sex and a host of other sinful things is because fathers are not fulfilling their responsibilities. It is time that fathers and grandfathers realize the awesome responsibility that we have molding our children's spiritual lives. It's time that fathers do more with their children than just play ball. It's time for fathers to act like spiritual giants in the household. A father and his son went on a fishing trip. When they returned home, the father was talking to a friend, and at the same time, the son was talking to a friend of his. The friend asked the father how the trip went. The father responded, "Absolutely miserable. Worst day of my life. We struggled getting the boat ready to go, got to the lake, and then found out we had to go get gas. Got out on the water late. All the good fishing spots were already taken. Finally found a place and then found out that the lines were all tangled together. No matter what kind of bait I was using, the fish were biting on something different. The sun was hot, the mosquitoes were biting, and we didn't catch a thing." The son's friend asked him how the trip went, and the son replied, "Best day of my life. Didn't catch a thing, but I got to spend the day alone with my dad. I got to spend the day alone with my dad." Cherish your father, because chances are he's going to go before you, and then you'll wish you had spent time with him. Same with the sons. Fathers, spend time with your sons. In this lesson this morning, I'm going to discuss two key points And they are the kind of father not needed and the kind of father desperately needed. And the title of my sermon is The Fathers We Need, is what my title is. The kind of fathers not needed. We do not need fathers today who will pitch their tent towards Sodom, as did Lot. When time came for the separation of Abram and Lot, Lot clearly made a choice indicating his materialism. In Genesis 13:10 through 13, it reads, "And Lot lifted his eyes and saw all the plains of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere." And that was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. "It was like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt as you go towards Zoar. Then Lot chose for himself all the plains of the Jordan, and Lot journeyed east. And they separated from each other. Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the city of the plain, and pitched his tent even as far as Sodom. But the men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and sinful against the Lord." Sodom was not a prosperous place for raising of a family. And in 2 Peter 2:7 through 8, it reads, "And delivered righteous Lot, who was oppressed by the filthy conduct of the wicked. For that righteous man dwelling among them tormented his righteous soul from day to day by seeing and hearing their lawless deeds." If righteous Lot was tormented day by day by the wickedness surrounding him, just think for a moment the effect this would have on his family. Genesis 19 seems to indicate that some of Lot's children chose to remain behind and not leave with Lot. All too often, fathers, your decisions are made with materialism in mind and maybe not the well-being of your family. And that's what Lot did. And we know that what happened at the end of that story. We do not need fathers today such as Jeroboam was to Nadab. Jeroboam was the first of 19 kings of the northern kingdom and had the opportunity of setting a righteous tone for his government and for his successor, one who would be his son Nadab. But instead, he chose to walk by his own sinful stubbornness. In 1 Kings 15:25 through 26, it reads, "Nadab reigned in Israel. Now Nadab, the son of Jeroboam, became king over Israel in the second year of Uzzah, the king of Judah. And he reigned over Israel 2 years, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord, and walked in the ways of his father, and in his sins by which he had made Israel sin." If we make a spiritual application to this, and we look at our world today, we are getting further removed all the time from the language of sound doctrine. Many of our young people no longer call Bible things by Bible names, and they're not doing Bible things in Bible ways. And in the most part, sometimes the fathers are many times to blame. So I look back on my life, if I wouldn't have become a Christian, I wonder where my children would be. I have 2 that are wayward still, and one that just came back here not too long ago, and then his older daughter was baptized also, so that's working out well. But the idea, fathers, is you're going to set the tone for your family and what they're going to do. And we have to be that spiritual giant that I talked about earlier. And we have to guide our families through maybe some of the roughest times. We don't know. We don't know what's going to befall us. We don't know. But I will tell you one thing. If you stay with God, you'll make it through. Guaranteed. You'll make it through. Just have a strong faith and guide your children in that way. The second point I want to make this morning is the kind of fathers that we desperately need. We need fathers today who will emulate Enoch. In Genesis 5:21 through 24, it reads, Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. After he begot Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. And in Hebrews 11:5 it reads, by faith Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death, and was not found, because God had taken him. For before he was taken, he had this testimony, that he pleased God. Fathers, by the things that we're doing and the way that we're raising our families, are we pleasing God? That's the thing we have to look at. These verses picture Enoch as a father who walked with God, a man of great faith, and a man who was not afraid to speak out against ungodly speech and conduct. Are fathers leaving this kind of example for our children today? As I look around our world, I see that that is eroding away. It's not gone, but it's eroding away. And we also need fathers today who emulate Noah. Peter called Noah a preacher of righteousness in 2 Peter 2:5, and did not spare the ancient world, but saved Noah, one of 8 people, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood on the world of the ungodly. And Genesis 6:8 through 9 says of Noah, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Noah pleases God. This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generation. Noah walked with God. A preacher of righteousness. My kids don't like when I preach to them. Your kids probably don't like when you preach to them either. But sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes we have to do that. Noah was a great father because he was concerned about, my notes say the saving of his children, but I'm going to put the word salvation in there because we should be concerned about the salvation of our children. He taught them. He was a preacher of righteousness. He walked with God, leaving his children a great example to follow. And you have to realize that Noah preached for 100 years and never converted anybody. But he didn't stop preaching.
Amen.
And I'll probably guarantee you he was probably preaching a sermon when he left. When God closed the door, he was probably still preaching, trying to get people to decide what to do. We also need to emulate fathers like Abraham. And in Genesis 18:19 it reads, for I have known him in order that he may command his children and his household after him, that they keep the ways of the Lord, to do righteousness and justice, that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has spoken to him. He trained his children in the way they should go. There's a verse in Proverbs 22, verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Fathers, we have to set the tone, as I mentioned, and we have to set the example for the family. Are we tyrants? No. Are we going to force it? No. But we better live it, and we better be the example so they can see it.
Yes.
If Abraham would have failed as a father, it is doubtful that he would have been given the title Father of all who believe. And that's found in Romans 4:11. And he received the signs of circumcision, a seal of righteousness of the faith, which he had while still uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all those who believe. Though they are uncircumcised, that righteousness might be imputed to them also. Today is Father's Day, as we know. And we are to remember and give respect to our fathers. And it's a day that we can say thank you to our fathers. If your father's still living, give him all the love and respect you can give him.
Amen.
Because no matter the mistakes he made, he still tried the best he could to do what was right for you. But let's also use this day to evaluate our lives as fathers. Are we being the kind of father that would be of spiritual benefit to our children? Are we being the kind of father that's pleasing unto God? We have an obligation to our children, and that obligation is to get them to heaven.
Amen.
And we have to work as hard as we possibly can to make that happen. It breaks my heart every time I say my prayers at night and I have to pray for my children because they could be possibly lost. As long as they have breath in them, they're able to come back. But they possibly could be lost. Heartbreaking as a father and a mother to even think about that you won't see them in heaven. If you have a need this morning to come forward to be baptized, we could do that for you. Or if you have a need to come forward to rededicate your life so that when you become a father or are a father, you do a better job of guiding your household into a life with the Lord. If you have a need, please come as we stand and sing.